They just found a secret defect in one of the world's most advanced planes. And it's terrifying. KLM grounded 7 Boeing 787 Dreamliners overnight. Not because of weather, not because of a crash, but because of a tiny hidden part that could have led to a massive disaster. It all started during a routine mechanical inspection at KLM's engineering hangar in early May 2025. One of the maintenance teams noticed something odd on a Boeing 787 Dreamliner after a normal refueling. The hose connection looked the same as the one used for the 777 aircraft, but the crew realized, wait a second, this shouldn't be the same. Turns out, KLM had accidentally been using a part meant for 777s instead of the dedicated 787 fitting. In a workshop comparison, engineers noticed the pins and grooves didn't lock exactly right, even though they worked most of the time. That inconsistency triggered alarms. If you use the wrong connector, one engineer explained, you might lose seal pressure. Fuel could leak or even worse. That discovery led to immediate action. 7 Dreamliners were grounded until all fittings were checked manually. Maintenance logs showed that the same incorrect part had been installed during standard servicing across multiple planes. This wasn't one-time human slip. It was a repeated oversight. Aircraft like the Boeing 787 use high-pressure fueling systems. If the connector isn't exact, it may cause fuel to drift or spray sideways while fueling. One risk? Micro leaks. Tiny amounts of aviation fuel escaping near hot engines or electrical systems can create fire hazards. It may be unnoticeable during fueling, and only detected later as disappearing fuel or smell. Another risk? Fuel pressure fluctuations. If the seal isn't perfect, pressure drops and refueling systems can miscalculate the amount delivered. That would risk the plane flying short on fuel, leading to major flight safety issues. A third risk, material mismatch. The 777 and 787 connectors are made of different alloys. Using a 777 part on a 787 plane exposes it to wear faster because of vibration differences. Over time, the friction could damage the pipe or cause faster corrosion. So, even if nothing happened immediately, repeated use could create holes or cracks further down the line. Engineers also explained how minor tilt angle differences matter. A 787's hull angle is slightly different than a 777's. So, while a hose may seem to attach fine, once the plane shifts during taxi or takeoff, the misaligned hose may loosen or shift enough to partially detach. Okay, so now that we know what the defect was and how risky it could have been, let's talk about how this affected real people, especially the passengers. When KLM grounded those 7 Boeing 787s, it didn't just cause a few delays. It created chaos for travelers, especially on long-haul routes. Imagine this. You're at the airport, bags packed, ready for a vacation or an important business trip. You're flying from Amsterdam to Mexico City. You get to the gate, and suddenly, there's an announcement. This flight has been canceled due to aircraft maintenance issues. No warning, no explanation. You're just stuck. That's exactly what happened to hundreds of people. Flights to cities like Mexico City, Chicago, and Portland were either canceled or delayed for hours. For some passengers, it meant missing connecting flights. For others, it meant spending the night at the airport or scrambling to find a hotel. A couple from the Netherlands shared online how their honeymoon trip got ruined because their flight was canceled at the last moment. Another student missed her visa appointment in the US because of the delay. And it's not just about missing flights. People also lost money on non-refundable bookings, hotel check-ins, and travel plans they couldn't reschedule. KLM did offer alternative flights in compensation, but there weren't enough backup planes ready to cover all the routes. Boeing 787s are mainly used for long-distance travel, and you can't just swap them with smaller planes. So even though KLM tried their best, many passengers were left disappointed, frustrated, and stuck in limbo. What made it worse? Many travelers had no idea what was really going on. Some only found out after news reports came out explaining the fuel connector issue. Before that, it just seemed like another delay. But knowing it was a serious safety problem made it even scarier. Now think about the airline crew too. Pilots, flight attendants, and ground staff. Many of them had to deal with angry passengers, rescheduled rosters, and confusing instructions. Some cabin crew members said they were told the plane was just in for maintenance. They didn't even know how serious the issue was at first. When KLM discovered the hidden defect in their Boeing 787's, they had to act fast. But fixing airplanes isn't like fixing a car. You can't just pull into a garage and swap out a part in an hour. This was a situation that needed serious coordination, and KLM's emergency response team was suddenly in full action mode. First, KLM activated its internal aviation safety team. These are the people who deal with anything that could affect flight safety, from engine failures to weather events to technical issues like this one. As soon as the defect was confirmed, the team ordered all similar aircraft to be grounded immediately. No second chances. Then came the communication nightmare. KLM had to inform airport teams, flight crews, maintenance engineers, and, most importantly, passengers. But they couldn't just say, "Hey, we found a part installed wrong." That could cause panic. So the team had to find the right balance between honesty and calm. They started issuing internal memos to staff. Ground agents were told to prepare for major delays. Flight crews were updated through scheduling platforms. And the maintenance team was ordered to inspect every 787 in their fleet, even those that weren't scheduled to fly that day. Behind the scenes, engineers rushed to recheck fuel system logs. They went back months to see when and how these connectors were installed. Every plane had a logbook. Every logbook had to be checked by hand. It wasn't something AI or a computer could flag. It needed real humans double-checking every detail. At the same time, the airline's legal and PR departments worked overtime. Media outlets were already getting wind of the issue. KLM knew that if they didn't speak up first, rumors would spread. So they released a short public statement confirming that, quote, several aircraft had been grounded for inspection due to an internal maintenance issue, end quote. It was a smart move. By being upfront, KLM avoided a lot of the blame that often gets thrown around when flights get canceled. Most passengers were still upset, but at least they felt like the airline was being somewhat transparent. After KLM grounded 7 of its Boeing 787's because of the wrong fuel part, the aviation regulators couldn't just sit back. This wasn't just a small airline issue. It involved safety, international routes, and one of the most popular long-haul aircraft in the world. That meant aviation authorities had to step in fast. In the Netherlands, the ILT, Human Environment and Transport Inspectorate, which acts like the Dutch version of the FAA, opened an investigation. Their job was to make sure KLM followed the proper maintenance standards and didn't cut corners. They also had to find out how this defect slipped past multiple inspections and whether it could happen again. At the same time, EASA, European Union Aviation Safety Agency, was alerted. Since KLM is a major European airline flying across borders, EASA needed to check if this defect was isolated or if other airlines were facing the same issue. They quickly sent out something called a Safety Information Bulletin, SIB, to all airlines operating the Boeing 787 in Europe, warning them to double-check their fuel system connectors. The US FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, also got involved because Boeing is an American company. Even though this issue happened in Europe, the FAA wanted to make sure the problem wasn't linked to a bigger manufacturing flaw. After all, if a maintenance part was being used incorrectly in Europe, it could happen elsewhere too, especially in airlines that operate both the 777 and the 787. Authorities also launched what's known as a root cause analysis. This is like an official detective mission. The goal is to trace the entire process back to the beginning. Who approved the wrong part? Who installed it? Who signed off on it? And what system failed to catch the mistake? In some cases, aviation regulators do surprise inspections, where they visit airline maintenance hangars without notice and audit everything. That's exactly what EASA did with a few European airlines after this KLM case. They wanted to see if other operators were accidentally doing the same thing. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was introduced as the future of aviation. Fuel efficient, lightweight, and high-tech. But even though it's a modern marvel, the Dreamliner hasn't had a smooth ride. The hidden defect found in KLM's 787 fleet is just the latest in a long list of issues that have followed this plane since the beginning. Let's go back to when the 787 first launched in 2011. Within just a couple of years, it was already making headlines for for the wrong reasons. In 2013, a battery fire on a Japan Airlines 787 caused a serious scare. The plane was parked at the gate when smoke started coming from the lithium-ion battery. This wasn't a one-time thing. Another 787 operated by All Nippon Airways had a similar issue during a domestic flight, forcing an emergency landing. After that, the entire 787 fleet worldwide was grounded for 3 months, something that rarely happens in aviation. Boeing had to redesign the battery system, add new safety features, and prove to regulators that it was safe to fly again. But that wasn't the end. Over the years, there have been more issues with the Dreamliner. Some 787s had problems with the wings, where tiny cracks were found in areas that handle high stress. Other planes had delamination, which is when layers of composite material, the stuff that makes the plane light, start to separate. Then came the quality control issues at Boeing's Charleston factory. In 2020 and 2021, multiple airlines reported that certain parts of the fuselage, the outer body, were not aligned properly. This might sound small, but in aviation, a tiny misalignment can mess up airflow, pressure control, and even structural strength. As a result, Boeing had to slow down production and reinspect hundreds of aircraft. And get this, even newly delivered 787s had problems. Some had paint peeling off near the wings and tail. Others had door issues or parts that weren't screwed in tight enough. It raised a big question. How could a $250 million aircraft come with such basic flaws? That's why, when KLM found this new defect, it didn't feel like a total shock. It felt like yet another chapter in the ongoing drama of the Dreamliner. Even though the 787 is incredibly popular, with over 1,000 planes delivered to airlines all over the world, its history has made people wonder if Boeing rushed things to stay ahead of Airbus. The fight between Boeing and Airbus is like the Coca-Cola versus Pepsi of the aviation world. They're the two biggest aircraft manufacturers globally, and every mistake one of them makes is a win for the other. So when KLM had to ground 7 of its Boeing 787s over a hidden maintenance defect, you can bet Airbus was paying close attention. Airbus has its own long-haul aircraft that competes directly with the 787. It's called the A350, and many airlines compare it side by side with the Dreamliner when choosing which one to buy. So when Boeing's Dreamliner ends up in the news for the wrong reasons, it gives Airbus a quiet edge. For airlines, reliability is everything. They don't just want a plane that looks good or saves fuel. They want one that won't cause unexpected delays, safety scares, or bad press. And right now, Boeing has had more than its share of bad headlines. From 737 MAX crashes to 787 production flaws, the company's image has taken a hit over the past few years. Meanwhile, Airbus has been trying hard to show that its planes are better built and more trustworthy. The A350 hasn't had as many major public issues, and many pilots even say it's easier to fly. In fact, after recent Boeing incidents, some airlines started switching orders from 787s to A350s, not just for safety, but also to avoid customer complaints and regulatory headaches. This matters a lot in business. When a big airline like KLM has to ground planes, it affects their brand, their loyalty, and their profits. But it also affects Boeing's future sales. Other airlines are watching. If they see the Dreamliner causing disruptions, they might lean toward Airbus the next time they need to expand their fleet. And that's not just theory, it's already happening. Some airlines in Asia and the Middle East have started diversifying their fleets, buying both Airbus and Boeing instead of sticking to one. Why? So they don't get stuck when one company has a major issue. Plus, let's not forget that Airbus is heavily backed by European governments, while Boeing has close ties with the US government. So when a European airline like KLM runs into trouble with an American-built plane, there's also a quiet political angle. European regulators, manufacturers, and even passengers may slowly push for more Airbus adoption, especially if it means fewer headlines and smoother operations. When 7 Boeing 787s were grounded by KLM because of that maintenance defect, the financial impact wasn't just about fuel valves or spare parts. It was about everything else that came crashing down with those grounded planes. Delays, cancellations, hotel stays, refunds, reputation damage, and a massive logistical nightmare. Multiply that by 7 planes and 3 days, you're already looking at over $3 to $4 million, and that's just the direct costs. Would you still feel safe flying on a Boeing 787 after this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-world stories that actually matter.